everyone, I'm Tanisha. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Monarch Witch. On this channel, I expose the tactics of the powers that were in this world, as well as help you awaken to your spiritual gifts by teaching from my own experiences and delivering channeled messages. By the end of today's video, I'm hoping I can help you understand why letting go of control and surrendering can be really beneficial to you in your life. And I'm going to do this by sharing a recent experience that I've had and teaching you the lesson that I gained from it. So the recent experience that I had involved my mum, and what we thought was a negative entity turned out to be a dark night of the soul, and a dark night of the soul for her. And I realized this when I was doing everything I could in my power to help her through this negative energy. But the tools and the tactics I was using were all about sending away the energy, or, defending against the energy. And every time I would try to help her by using a tool to do this, it wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why, because I'd use these same tools and tactics to help lots of people that, are dealing with negative entities and possession and oppression in their life. And these things had worked for them. So, and this is when I've explained a little bit on one of my earlier videos that a negative entity is unbalanced dark energy, essentially. And some of it can come from the outside in, because altogether collectively we created this energy, but the energy coming in might not be an energy of your own creation. And so that's when it might be an energy of our ancestors have created a lot of energy. We in this timeline, collective consciousness, have created a lot of energy, and sometimes it's not yours. And so that's when those tools work. But they were not working for Mum. It was just making it worse. And I couldn't figure out why. And it was driving me absolutely insane, because it's my mum. I care for her. I love her. I hated seeing her suffer like this, and felt really helpless in the fact that I couldn't fix her when I'd been able to help other people. Okay. And I became quite obsessed with this, and she was telling me honestly, I said, has this worked? And she was saying, no, it's gotten worse. And then it got to a point where she called me on the phone, and she told me that she had felt the need to reach out to Jesus, reach out to God. And she said to me, you have to worship Jesus. You have to worship him. It's the only thing that helps. You can't do this by yourself. And that was what had worked for her. Now, if I was not operating out of my spiritual ego, which is a thing, can be a thing with the spiritual side of things, where you become a little bit too controlling in not only your journey, but other people's around you. If I had not been operating from that place where I had subconsciously made her journey all about me, I should have been happy for her. I should have said, like, I'm so happy for you that that worked for you. But instead, as soon as she used the word worship, it was like it put me into my own, another ego death, another dark night of the soul. Because as you know, I've spoken to you guys about being through many of them, and sometimes that can be why it takes so long to do videos, even though I'm intending to do them every day. But I don't want to do them until I have full clarity and I can be assured that I'm giving you a message that is beneficial. So yeah, the word worship just completely triggered me, because in my own journey, I have struggled with this concept of worship, of giving my power away to something else, because I saw how that could be a negative thing through religion and other aspects in life, but was forgetting how it could kind of be a positive thing as well, and how it might benefit someone else on their journey to go in that direction. Me personally, on my journey, I don't like to worship any entity or put them above me, because I just think it's like enslaving yourself and handing away your power. But that's my journey, So I just went into like a really negative spiral after this, and just was like, well, if I can't help her, what's the point in doing any of this? What's the point in who I am? I threw my sage against the wall. I threw my selenite sticks against the wall and was ready to give up on this channel. Because I just want to be completely transparent and honest with you guys, because you can't get the true lessons and the teaching out of things without authenticity and honesty. And that's where I was at. I was ready to give up everything because I hadn't been able to help Mum. And I had to let myself go through this whole process of all the release of all the negative emotions that I felt, and the need for control that I felt. And I had to let myself go through all of this, let myself feel everything, and a lot of it was to do with just letting go of control of another person's journey, and in parts of my own, which I'll get around to saying, but definitely of other people's journeys. So I let myself go through all of this, and then at the end of it, I was sort of getting the feeling like I was meant to step back. I was meant to step back and just be there as a comfort, but that's it, no spells, not trying to do it for her, not trying to force my way onto her, because although witchcraft and earth-based practices work for me, and I truly feel in my soul that this is meant to be my journey, may not be hers, and I think that was a hard thing to face too, because of all of the oppression and negativity against witches and earth-based practices, and the suppression of the feminine, and all of that has a lot to do with my journey. But yeah, it was just stepping back and realizing that my journey and my way wasn't necessarily going to be my mum's. And so I had that feeling, and I conveyed that to her and said, I think I'm meant to step back. Like, I think you're meant to go through this. I think the only way out is in. And then she sent me a message of, I can't remember the girl's name, but like a prophetess for God. And on that, this woman was talking about exactly that. How, getting to know God usually comes through the trials of fire. That's when you'll get to know him the most. And then we kind of both come to the realization that I was meant to step back, and maybe this wasn't something coming from the outside in, but maybe this was a dark night of the soul, especially because Mum just stepped into her purpose and her telling of her story. And, you know, as a lot of you probably know, the dark night of the soul does come when you fully step into your purpose because, well, for one, all the suffering, all the trauma led you to your purpose usually. And two, because it's also realizing that that's part of your journey, but that's not who you are, and it's realizing who you truly are, and it's releasing a lot as soon as you step into your purpose. So we came to the realization that that's what it was for her. And, you know, I needed to step back. And after processing my own emotions and releasing that, I said to her, you know what, my journey isn't religion. I talk about Christ a lot. I believe in Christ. I believe Christ is the embodiment of the energy of love. But a lot of you know that I'm not religious. And I guess I do have my own prejudices against religion. Not usually religious people specifically, because I know a lot of loving people. But, you know, there's just been like a lot of negativity that's come from it towards witches especially, and so that's something that I've dealt with in my own soul. But yeah, I realized that maybe that is her way, you know, maybe her way to find God and her relationship to God is different to mine. And you know, my way was a little bit unconventional, I guess, and we don't even know that religion is going to be her way to find God. But if that is her way, then I knew I needed to be okay with it, and I needed to support it. And the other realization that I came to was the fact that sometimes we actually need to go through what is the opposite of ourselves as well to know ourselves. So sometimes that feeling of handing away our power and powerlessness, it can be to know how powerful we really are, you know? And when I say how powerful we are and that I don't want to hand over my power, I don't mean it from a human ego perspective, even though I was operating a little bit out of my ego. But when I wasn't being caught up in my ego, it was from a perspective of that piece of the Divine Father, Divine Mother being within us and not handing away that power, you know? But I think I did get caught up a little bit in the human perspective of power and the ego as well. And so I had this another realization of letting go and surrendering as well, and what that meant from a positive perspective. Instead of viewing it from just as handing away my power, enslaving myself, I realized that it was more about the human side of myself, my ego self, letting go of control and surrendering, and letting my spirit, the Divine Father, the Divine Mother part of me, my soul self take the reins, which I have talked about in other videos, how your spirit is meant to take the reins of your life, and your brain is meant to be the tool for that. But, you know, every now and then you can find yourself, your brain is leading again, your spirit has taken a back seat, and then so something usually happens for your spirit to come forward again. And your spirit knows where it's going, your spirit knows what it's doing, and it's guiding you what actions to take in life. And from my own experiences, I've always seen that when I have allowed the spirit to lead, you know, the most amazing things can happen. I can meet the most amazing people. It's not what I, the human self, the ego, the brain expected. It's sometimes it's better. It's better. And you know, our brain often, if we're going through a dark night of the soul too, it's like, this feels bad, this feels horrible, this is bad, I don't want this. But our spirit self knows what's coming at the other end of it. You know, the Divine Father and Mother knows what's coming at the other end of that dark night of the soul. And it's just knowing ourselves and having that connection to the Divine Father, the Divine Mother, and Spirit more fully. And so while my mum was going through her dark night of the soul, that kind of triggered another ego death for me, and realizing again the positive of letting go of control and surrendering. Now, another thing is, as a witch, you know, we do spells to create specific outcomes and things like that. So I think sometimes maybe we can get a little caught up in control of it as well. And I do believe in spells, which is essentially manifesting, but using physical objects to bring down the energy and move it through the physical. And I do believe that, you know, either the outcome that you do the spell for will happen, or something even better will happen. Like sometimes you go to do a spell and it doesn't work because it's not meant to, you know. So there are things we can affect and we can influence, and we are called to affect and influence. But there are sometimes things that we can't see all the different ways they might play out. And like an example of this I can give is if you did a spell for wealth, and you were currently in a job that you'd been in for years, and then all of a sudden you get fired from your job, and you might think that the spell has not worked. You might think that it's backfired, but it could be, if you change your perspective on it, that what's actually happened is the job has then left your life, because to get the wealth that you want, you can't be stuck in that job. Or to get the wealth you want, maybe that job is creating a mindset in you that isn't going to allow that wealth. You know, there's just lots of different things that our human self can't see. And, you know, I do believe in the power of energy and manifesting. But it's like, once you've done it, you let the spirit take the reins. The spirit guides you on what action to take. And sometimes it can end up better than what you imagined. And why you're having this resistance from the human self, though, that more than likely will stop you from the outcome you wanted. You know, with my mom, it was keeping her in her dark night of the soul when she was fighting against it, and it wasn't allowing her to have this release until I stepped back, and then she realized that, you know, the only way out is through. So yeah, that's how it can be beneficial, is your spirit knows what it's doing. It'll guide you on the actions to take. Your human self might be like, I don't like this. I don't know how this is all going to play out. But your spirit knows what it's doing. And, you know, Christ as well, it does know what he's doing, because that's a part of your spirit as well. You know, all the energies that have been, that are, and that ever will be are part of your soul as well. Anyway, after talking about all that, I'm excited to tell you guys that I have started a Patreon. And on this Patreon, we are going to be doing rituals towards the healing of the world, and balancing the suffering and balancing that energy. So I'm really excited to be doing this. And the reason that I would like, you know, many numbers on board is because it's power in numbers. And that's also something I've had to realize in this whole letting go of control, is I cannot affect the outcome of every little thing. I cannot fix everything. I cannot end all suffering by myself. It's something we're meant to do as a collective consciousness, as a team. And for ages I was afraid to start this Patreon, and it's called the Monarch Witches, and it's going to be like my own little coven, our own little coven. And I was afraid to start it because of, you know, the whole thing with cults. And I was like, oh God, I don't want it to turn into anything like that. But I realized it's not going to, because I really want to encourage everyone to bring their individuality into it. I don't want people to be a specific way. In fact, you don't even have to be a witch or practicing witchcraft to join. You just have to want to project an energy of love and healing in the world. And if you'd like to do that, I'd love to have you. So I'll put the link for the Patreon in the description. Also, I will be doing spells for paying members on Patreon as well, and spells that are my own creation and that I've tested and that work and that I know work. But they are personal to me, so I do want an energy exchange for giving away the spells, which is why they're only for paying members. And I also will have a Facebook group for the Monarch Witches as well, so I'll put all that in the link in the description below. And if it's something you'd like to do, I'd love to have you on board. If you like the message of this video, please share it around if you'd like to. And thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and have a lovely day or night wherever you are.